Okay. Um, so I guess every single time that I'm trying to say anything, I'm grasping onto control. The second that you try to take control of the situation, you're giving up complete control of the situation, which is where anxiety and like self-esteem problems come into play. So I can use my own personal example in terms of what's actually going on right now in the moment inside of me to sort of help explain larger and smaller cycles because that's really all that it relays to. Um, so in this case, making videos, every single time that I try to make a video, I care about what I'm going to say because I care about the response on the other side of the receiving end. Um, Only when you choose to think about it. Like if you try to analyze the variables involved and all of these things that are actually completely out of your control, all that you have in your control is what is going to flow naturally, like right now. Um, so the second that you give up plans, everything kind of works itself out, but the problem comes into play with like more than one party being involved. So if there's any of your friends or family, like when you live inside one household with other people, then you're all constantly trying to balance out the equation individually. So you're all in the same house, grasping onto what you're trying so desperately to control as individuals instead of sitting down in the living room having a conversation about everybody's goal because we all actually have pretty much one end goal in mind, and it's not a defining general statement of this is the goal, but it's more of an in the moment, you know what you're feeling, so you know what the current problem that you need to address is at all times. And the only way that you're not gonna solve your own problem is through lack of communication and patience. So the second that you choose to interact with the other people in the shared space, um, and choose patience over ignorance or tolerance, actually no, it's not ignorance, because we're at a point where a lot of us aren't ignorant anymore, we're actually listening to well, we're not listening, we're tolerating one another's perspectives completely. So this is smaller or larger scales. So within one family, let's say for a long time, if you were born, you usually took up the role of your parents. So this comes into a lot of like our last names, our Farmer and Smith, and I guess that's all you really need to get is that in the past, when you were born, you inherently, without your consent, but the understanding that it was best in the moment because we needed to achieve a common goal of survival. So our root chakras is what we were worried about for fucking ever, like for such a long time. So everybody was assimilating because that's what was best in the moment of that point in time. Uh, we needed to assimilate, and that's why we did, because we understood the greater purpose for it was survival. But now we're at a point where we're all surviving just fine. Nothing. Well, then you can get into like classes and poverty around the world and so on and so forth. But that's kind of the next solution is understanding that right now, from a Western perspective, we are showing ignorance in the fact that we don't want to address those problems, not because we don't care, not apathetically, but out of fear of losing what we worked so hard to acquire. Um, and now it's getting to a place of indulgence and ignorance. So now we have an abundance here, of what we've found out that we can acquire and that we can all acquire. There's actually, we're all figuring out that we can all drive cars, we can all have houses, we can all, and it doesn't impose on what other people can have. But this is where things become smaller cycles and larger cycles. So first you need to deal with what's small. So if as individuals we can, through patience and communication, talk to the people in our own homes just on a very small scale. So with your parents and your brother, there we go. Okay. So with our relatives or our loved ones that are immediately affecting our day-to-day lives, I think that's the best way to break it down. Um, these are the people and the karma and the energetic relationships that will most significantly alter your reality. Um, so these are the people that affect us a lot. And everybody affects you, but to what degree, what scale is that on? So focus on the small scales that you have control over. And the second you get control over the smaller scale, meaning you find harmony with the people that you live with, then you can start to worry about a larger scale, which is where you get people who enter into politics and government because they've figured out the relationships between their smaller cycles. So now their mind is prepared to handle a larger, more complex system of relationships. Um, and I guess what we've kind of gotten off the ball with is we're allowing the control structure to be governed through inheritance. So this came in like monarchy times. We did need to have a king for a long time, dependent on the circumstance we were in, because we had things to worry about, other tribes, other people, we had to protect ourselves. So this guy clearly, his mind was more together and relaxed and could understand the intricacies of the relationships that he was ruling over. And everyone gave him that power because they agreed. They're like, "Aye, you're doing pretty good. You know what's kind of going on. So we'll let you guide us." And that was the main purpose, is to be a guidance, and it's supposed to be for everyone's benefit. But then every single time that you provide a masculine energy form with the power over creativity, so a feminine energy form, corruption happens every single time. So this can be represented in natural relationships with our world, like black holes or like fire. So a black hole, its relationship with the world is extremely from a place of insecurity and anxiety, because it consumes everything that is not it. Um, so the black hole consumes absolutely everything, and anything that goes near the black hole becomes a black hole. Like you just, you can talk about the complications of it being a portal into another whatever. That's not really the point. But then if you look at flames and fire, the only thing restricting that masculine energy form, which can also be seen as feminine, but in balance it's feminine. When you give fire the ability to spread, it will, no problem. And if you don't interfere with that process, it'll burn up everything. Everything will just become fire. And then through the flames, it's all, it's all regressed, and it has to start again and regrow from stage one again. And so this is what happens with a king or a ruler or a government or anything that is supposed to be a collective consciousness or an individual consciousness that guides a larger population. Um, so the second that this king, or consider him a flame, is not kept in check and balanced and nurture the flame through the people, through the community that is instilling it with fire, with spirit, with inspiration. So this king is incredibly inspired, and he has a vision for the better of everyone. And everyone's like, yeah, that's a great vision, so here we're gonna give you the resources to see that through for all of us. And then he gets all the resources, which means that this flame is just not being nurtured, but you're just throwing all the fucking kindling on top, like all of it. You give him complete control, and this flame burns it all. This masculine consciousness just consumes, because it's not even the individual's fault, it's everyone's fault at that point, because you guys didn't understand the relationship that you were taking part in. You thought that like you became lazy, not you as in blaming anybody, but we, like my consciousness would have been a part of that whole process. Whatever, it doesn't really matter anymore. Now we need to stop pointing fingers and say, here's the problem, let's solve it, and move forward, because that's the most difficult thing for all of us to do, is not point the finger, because it's the first thing that we do. Like, even in a small cycle of you walking around your house and stubbing your toe, you instantly usually shout out a word of some sort that is obviously negative, and it's a form of blame. You're externalizing the problem and saying it was the wall's fault, or even the toe's fault, but you're trying not to take accountability for the fact that you just weren't paying attention. And that's a really small scale of talking about what we're doing to one another. Like, even at work, I was at work not too long ago. I've only got maybe like 2 minutes left. I was at work not too long ago, and we have a cardboard compactor, a baler, and it got shoved too full, and we all had to cut it all up and pull it all out and go through the process of fixing the problem that was at hand. But all anyone around me could talk about was the fact that somebody should have done this. Somebody should have done this before, and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's not even a judgment thing on my part. I don't care what they want to talk about or whatever, but it's understanding that that's not getting anyone in the situation anywhere, including and most importantly, the individual who's speaking about it, because they're consciously regressing or at a standstill and choosing not to learn from the current situation, because that's the only thing that actually matters. Okay, 14 minutes. Instagram and stuff only lets me do IGTV videos for about 15. So I'll probably just pause this one and start another one. Thanks for listening.